Thank you everyone for joining back for another episode. I'm your host, Ryan Richards. I'll be here with Steve Pizzarella to talk about the market, a little bit about what he's seeing in the day-to-day and how he's adjusting to deal with his buyers. So Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
If you don't mind starting by telling everyone listening a little bit about yourself and where you are today.
So I currently live in Somerville, Mass. I grew up in West Boylston, Central Mass town. Went to St. John Shrewsbury. After that, went to Merrimack College, graduated with a bachelor's in business administration, major in management. Right after that, I hopped into my family business in Worcester. Didn't love it. It was like a year there. Didn't love it.
What were you doing with them?
They own a couple auto body shops, so I was doing a little bit of management for that. Ventured out, man.
Yeah.
Ventured out.
Yeah, what made you make the switch into real estate?
So I used to listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast every single day, even in college. That kind of pulled me in that direction of just interest, I guess you could say. And then I started with millennial real estate investors. I got glued to that podcast.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They do good stuff over there.
Yeah. And then I met John Millen, and he pulled me in hard. He's like, this is what you got to do. This is what you're good at. I know you can do it. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. Let's do it.
And here you are.
Yeah, just jumped in full-fledged.
Good for you. And what do you think you like most about it, about being it?
I love the freedom that you have and the ability of how much you can work as much as you want, just making people happy. It's tough. It's not easy right now.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people probably don't understand if you don't do it is that, like, when you're an agent, you're in the business, it's not just real estate. I mean, you have to be good at marketing, you have to be good at social media, and you have to be good at managing essentially your own business, which I don't think that gets seen all the time, but you can really make it into what you want.
Exactly. And it's tough getting up every day because you don't have a set schedule. So you got to just put it down and do it.
Yeah, that's the tough. It can get out of people's hands like that because freedom's great, I mean, in anything, but when you start having that much freedom, it's tough to make sure you're staying on track. And, golf's a part of our business, which is great, but,
it saves me.
Got to make sure you balance it.
Definitely.
For sure. And obviously, this year being in real estate, we've seen such a wild ride as far as the market, especially on the interest rate side, but real estate market side itself. What have you seen as far as changes this year in the market?
Rates, man. Rates.
Amen.
Yeah, that's the craziest part right now. I mean, I still don't think it's a bad time to buy.
What kind of conversations are you having with your buyers who are hesitant around that question? Because I'm in the same belief where I think it's never necessarily a bad time to buy real estate, but you just might have to change how you go about buying it or what you look for in a property to make sure you're protected. But when you have a client who comes to you and says, well, I don't know if it's the right time to buy, do you have any input for that discussion? Or?
For me, it's basically wants and needs. And obviously price point. Like, what can you afford monthly? Forget about that top dollar number. That doesn't matter. What can you comfortably afford monthly? And with rates going up, that's going to go up as well. So that's kind of what I set in stone off the bat. Renting, just you're throwing the money away. That's what really gets to me. I try to set them up with people like you so they can realize what they can afford off the bat and get that overall perspective.
That's super important because until you're able to set that expectation of what your monthly budget can buy you, you don't even know what to show them for a house.
Exactly.
And in most cases in the market today, that means location. Some people might say, oh, well, I want to buy a $500,000 house in Wellesley. And you're probably like, that's not realistic.
I can't buy a shed in Wellesley for that.
So let's readjust. We'll figure out where you can afford and you'll try to find them something that fits.
Definitely. It's all about location, like you said.
Yeah, so in that same price point discussion, like always becomes the question of monthly budget. And like we were talking about before we hopped on, is just how the other inflationary pressures are making people feel less able to afford a home comfortably. With that being said, obviously the more money you make, the more discretionary income you have. Do you find that there's any difference in types of property or price point as far as seeing changes in the market? Like, are $1 million homes sitting longer, or are the single family homes in that more affordable $400,000 price point, are those still competitive, or what are you seeing?
I still see those flying, the $400,000 homes, like Worcester County area. If you're priced right, it's a decent spot. It's gone quick. Greater Boston, I have a listing in Malden right now, and it's just not going as fast as I'd like, and just the way the market is, especially in an investment standpoint. If the numbers don't make sense, no one's buying it. Yeah,
that's the tough part, is it's not only affecting those who want to buy the home as a primary residence to live in it, but for investors, it's becoming much harder to make numbers work at these new interest rates.
Definitely.
And especially because they move so fast and prices haven't had a time to adjust yet. And people always talk about the market and what will we see for a price adjustment or correction. I don't think that crash is necessarily the right word for what we'll see, but I do think, and you tell me what your thoughts are, but I do think a correction is imminent. I think it's coming.
I think it's needed.
Yeah.
Crash can't happen. I mean, there's so little on the market, It's not '08. There's just so much on the market. Correction could very much be needed.
Yeah.
I think it'll benefit a lot of people.
I think that's a key point to understand for anyone listening, is that a correction would be a benefit to a lot of people who are starting to look. Because as things correct, like your property in Malden, your seller might be more willing to take a lower offer, entertain a different type of financing because there's no other offers on the table.
It's an investment property. So as long as he's cash flowing at the end of the day, he doesn't have a rush to sell it.
Right.
So he's just kind of has that outlook on, okay, I can sell it. Let's see what happens. And the market's changed over the last 3 months from when we listed. So
yeah, that's an important thing too. It happens so fast. I mean, we're sitting here now at interest rates the national average this morning was over 7%. And, we look back to the end of August, and interest rates in the end of August were in the high fours.
And we were scared then, right?
Yeah. And people were already, didn't have a good taste in their mouth because they lost 2 and 3. I think that, all this will work itself out, but through it, there are still people buying real estate every day.
Oh, 100%.
And just like the stock market might be down 20% year to date, but that presents opportunity. So I think it's a matter of finding those opportunities because they'll present themselves. So
they definitely will. And if you stick it out and, you get these properties now that do make sense in the future when people say, oh, he got lucky.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of interest rates too.
Exactly.
Aside from the property, is that you take an interest rate today, you're either going to look back a year or two from now and be grateful that you got the rate you did, or you're going to potentially refinance that rate to capture a lower one.
And what's it cost to refi? Come on, it's nothing. It's not 30 grand,
Right. You'll probably save it back in interest alone, depending on how much rates move.
Exactly. And if rates go up, you're still stuck at what you're at.
You got a great deal.
Yeah. Fixed rate is the craziest thing because everyone thinks fixed rate, like I'm never getting out of that. No one really thinks about the refi process.
No.
And it's easy.
It is easy, and that's the beauty of it, is that refinances can be easy. You already have a lot of your documents together probably from the purchase, and if you work with the same lender, we understand your profile, some of the challenges, and what we need for documentation. Yeah. So it can be really quick and easy. And what we're seeing a lot from the lending side, as of recent, are some appraisal waivers, which are coming into play. There's been so many sales that this automated software can pull from so many data points to come up with an understanding of the value in your house.
It's the best.
So it is the best, yeah. Take some stress out of it.
Oh, it's just one less thing to worry about, right?
And for a buyer, you save $400 or $500.
Exactly.
So that's something that hopefully we'll see more of those. There's a lot of obviously uncertainty in the market with where everything is today as we talk about this. But what advice would you have for someone who is considering buying today? Do you have any thought processes to think about, or any key points to think about? Like, you mentioned circumstances earlier, like your want and need. Are there any key things they should hone in on when they're trying to make this decision?
Set yourself up with a good team. Whether you're ready now, 2 months, in a year, set yourself up with a great team. You know what? Lender, attorney, agent. That's your key right there. You got to get an idea of what you actually want. Whether it's a single family, or if you want a house hack, or if you want a condo, you got to get that idea. Those options could come up at any time, and you could say, I love that multifamily. Maybe I could house hack it. Maybe I could move out in a year and go line equity, obviously, depending on how much you put down. Options like that. Yeah,
I think both those points are really important, that you need to have a team. Often people, I don't think, quite understand that real estate is not a team sport, but it's a team game. If you have a couple people working for you in your corner, you have a real estate agent who works with the lender to protect you and work with your budget, and you have an attorney who's watching out for you all the while, it functions so much better.
Definitely.
You always make the analogy to sports because it's understandable, but just because offensive coordinator and the head coach have different roles, they're communicating about the game plan.
100%.
And if they weren't, then everyone wouldn't be on the same page.
It'd be haywire.
So I think that's super important for people to understand. Having an idea of what you want, because if someone comes to you and gives you 15 different types of properties to look for, how are you supposed to best guide them? Because you're all over the place.
It's impossible. It really is. You just throw stuff out to people and hope that they like it. That's not the goal. You want to get that criteria set in stone and then funnel the properties out to them. And they can kind of pick and choose and say, I like this better. I'm not too much of a fan of that colonial. So you kind of get the ideas of what they really like, make it happen.
Right. And you can fine tune the nuances of the properties. Like if someone says, I want a single family home. Well, what type of single family home? Do you want a colonial? Do you want a ranch? Yeah. Are you open to an older home? Do you want a newer home? And then how does the layout? Every home's laid out differently. And I think that's when you can really fine tune your home search.
I feel like I'm seeing a little bit more of that now. When stuff was crazy, about a year and a half ago, I had people that just were like, I want a house in this area. That's all they cared about. As long as it's 2 beds plus, we're good.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of changing. They're getting a little bit more, pick and choose. The market's still tough.
Definitely still a competitive time.
Yeah.
We talked about some of those properties that we're still seeing multiple offers on. Some clients in the Worcester area who are looking at multifamilies, and they're still bidding over ask.
Yeah. And there's a lot less competition on the market, though, than than before.
Absolutely.
So will you bid over ask sometimes? Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing it more and more than, not. There's so much, the competition's so much less.
Yeah. I think that's a great point as well, because people read the headline news, right? Everyone loves to read just the first sentence of an article, and you see, inventory is coming back and price growth is slowing. Yep. There's more opportunity, which there is, but in comparison, historically, still, much more competitive than in markets past. It's just we're slowing down from the peak.
Yeah, and the peak was crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm sure you have some horror stories from.
Oh yeah,
from that.
20 plus offers going over like 50 grand over. It just hurt, But a lot of people didn't want to waive inspections, and I would never guide them in the route to waive one.
Yeah,
if they're not comfortable. But it was just a crazy time. It really was.
Hindsight's always 20/20. But when you're looking back, you probably wish you were someone who got a house in January. Even though you might have paid a premium, your interest rate's fixed at 2%, 3%, 4%. So
you're not getting lower than those twos.
No, they're not coming back. And we joke in the office that if they ever do come back, I don't really know if I want to be a part of whatever economic event causes that. Yeah. Like it took a worldwide pandemic for rates to come to 2% and 3%.
I don't want to see that again. Yeah. I really don't.
I don't know if that's something I want to live through either.
But I mean, I have a couple buddies who they partnered up and bought a 4-family out in Air. 2.2%, I think their rate is, FHA. I still to this day, like, how did we get that? I'm like, never happening again. So hang on to it.
They're still probably equally as excited about the property, because if you didn't get a property in a good location, and especially when you're buying a multifamily for investing in the long term, that's also super important, which is why you probably see real estate professionals across multiple different avenues, whether it's a realtor or a loan officer, posting about like marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah.
But it's so true, because if you can buy a property with a 2% interest rate in a horrible area with bad tenants, has structural problems, and that will be a horrible investment.
Yeah. Versus
buying a nice property in a nice area that has good tenants and has some of the bones already repaired, has a new roof, new furnace, whatever the case may be. And that investment at a 7% interest rate can be much better in the long term than the other one if you had captured it at 2%.
Definitely. Rates don't matter in an investment as long as the numbers make sense. Simple as that.
Yeah, the numbers are the numbers, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. They're laid out right there. This is what it is. And if they make sense, they make sense in cash flow.
And like we talked about a minute ago, if you can make the numbers work at rates now, only thing you have to look forward to is upside. Because assuming it's in the right area, like we talked about, it's a nice property.
Rents are going up.
Rents are on the rise. Yeah. If you have it working at 7 and you can refi in a couple of years to 5, now your cash flow you got green coming your way. So,
and I mean, just the way the market is, rents are just going to continue to go up. And I don't know if you saw the 2023 fair market housing report. Crazy how much rents went up. It's just yearly. I can't see it going down just based on rates, inventory. People need places to live.
And that's the bottom line. I was listening to a podcast. It's called On the Market. It's hosted by some of the Bigger Pockets crew.
Yeah, I know it is.
And they were talking about that same conversation. Yeah. And it was about where rents are now and I guess the projection for them, and talking about affordable housing. But it's like, for affordable housing to come back, and obviously somewhat opinionated, so take it as you will. But if the only way to bring back affordable housing, in my opinion, is you need more supply, right? I think that's pretty standard. But how do you get more supply at an affordable price point? Because if you're a builder, you can't build a 2,000 or 2,500 square foot house and sell it for 400 and make a profit. Cost of building is just too expensive.
Not in this market, yeah.
So that's why I think, to your point, that rents will continue to grow, because there's no alternative.
Well, they're throwing the government's throwing the money out there. That's what's really helping the investors. Between RCAP, Worcester Housing Authority, Section 8, they're paying top dollar because these people need places to live. And you don't have to do those programs, I have clients I work with that love them because they get the direct deposit. But I have clients I work with that hate them. It's all about how you view it overall.
I think with the new program too in Massachusetts, where there's Mass Housing's offering first-time homebuyer grant up to $50,000. I mean, that's helping people get more access to housing.
Crazy if you don't utilize that.
Yeah, you should definitely look into it.
Reach out to this guy.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look at it. I mean, the criteria is surprisingly easy, to meet.
If they're giving it, someone's got to take it. Right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if any Mass Housing reps watch this, I'm sorry, but I don't know if it was the most effectively implemented, because the challenge for us as lenders is,
I don't know, it's crazy.
We can pre-approve you based on the grant. So you almost have to qualify without the grant in place to be able to really have a firm pre-approval. And that's some of the challenges we're running into from the lending side. But some of the benefits, you can make a substantial amount of money and still qualify. The income limits are very liberal.
I was very surprised by the income limits.
Yeah.
Very, very surprised.
I was too. I mean, for Worcester, the upper end's like 145 grand. It's like everyone in Worcester, you know?
I mean, it's not bad money, you know?
No, definitely.
I'm excited to see how that pans out. More and more people are actually getting them going right now. I haven't had anyone that's really digging towards it yet, but I've heard a couple success stories already of closings with them.
That's awesome.
How about you?
I haven't had any personally. I have a lot of people who are looking to start the process with it.
Someone says free money and everyone runs.
Oh,
right?
yeah, right. I would too. I'd come running with a bag for it, you know?
Oh, my God, yeah.
I've heard similar success stories of some people at our company where they've been able to get them in the program. And sometimes things can sound good, not almost too good to be true, and they are. I mean, you look at when they did PPP loans for small businesses during COVID, and everyone was like, oh, we're never going to get the money, and it came. Yeah. I think this could be one of those scenarios where that happens, and I'd be happy for any buyer who's able to take advantage of it. So, I
mean, it's awesome. It really is. Can get a lot of people that weren't set in the down payment aspect to just be able to hop in.
Yeah, it bridges the gap for a lot of people, and a lot of people. And part of that program too that a lot of people don't know about, the mass housing program, is you can go no money down. So on top of no money down already, I mean, your fallback option is you can still buy a house with potentially no money down.
Exactly.
So it's not like you're all in on this grant or nothing. I mean, you can still make housing affordable. I talked in the last podcast about a client who got an accepted offer with mass housing, no money down, and a seller credit to closing costs because, as we discussed earlier, the market's changing. This particular seller needed to sell because he was moving.
Score right there.
Score. He's closing on Monday, and he just bought a house for like $2,000 out of pocket, and it appraised 10% over.
So he's just walking in with some cash.
He's walking in. Yeah. So that's a success story, though. I mean, his interest rate's 6% or more, but he's got a great deal, and in the long run, he'll put some value into that property and be in a great spot.
The money's just going back to him too. He pays his mortgage. It just comes right back to him. He's not paying that rent to someone else.
So I think, this story about, my client who was able to get the no money down offer accepted, and then just all this support systems that are in place, through grant money and different housing authorities. It just shows you that, there are many different financing options out there for first-time home buyers, and many of which can be very affordable. We were talking earlier about some conventional programs that you can go 3% down. Yeah. And there's, other government programs where you can also go no money down aside from the state program. That's why it's so worth it just to reach out to someone in our space to get some guidance. Because the worst case is you spend an hour on the phone with Steve or I, and you figure out that this decision to buy might not be for you, but now you're making it with your eyes open because you have all of the information you possibly could to make a good decision.
And when you are ready to buy, when you're ready to buy. It makes sense to you. Where it's just overall thinking, like, can I do it? Can I do it? Am I able to do it?
That's a huge point. I talk about that all the time on my Instagram and on the other podcast is the idea of planning. Just saying, I want to save up to buy a house. Like, I don't think that that's enough to really implement a proper plan. You need to understand how much do you need to save? How long of a time frame will that take? How do I save? Am I going to take an extra $100 a month out of my paycheck, put it into an account? Am I going to invest it? What strategies are you actually going to put in place to be able to do this? And in the same token, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Where might you want to live? If you have kids, what school systems might they want to be in? Yeah. I like Shrewsbury. Well, have you been to Shrewsbury? Maybe you should drive through Shrewsbury a couple times. Exactly. Familiarize yourself with it. Now, when you go to make that plan, like we talked about earlier, you come to Steve and you say, this is exactly what I want. I want a ranch in Shrewsbury.
It makes it easy.
It makes it so much easier just to find that. So
no, I totally agree. You overall have to give that idea or you're lost.
That's with anything though, especially these major decisions. If you wanted to start a business, you wouldn't just say, I'm going to start a business next month. Okay, well, how?
Yeah, I'm a big planner. If I don't have a plan for something, my head's gone.
It's too hard to keep track of it all. Buying a house, as exciting as it is, it's always something that falls to the back burner on everyone's plate until all of a sudden your lease is up in 2 months and you're like, okay, I got to buy a house. Which can be done. Steve will show you a way to do it. I'll try to get you financing, but you don't have time in 2 months to save for a down payment, save for reserves, figure out what you want for a house, and then be able to actually go out and look. The sooner you can iron out the less fun details, the sooner you can go look for a house.
If that's your goal to buy a house, watch this thing a couple months ago. Some guys write it on paper, circle it. 7 things of how you're going to do it. Plan it out. Get it going.
Love that.
You're not just going to say, I'm going to buy a house and
I think,
chip away, try to figure it out, You got to have that plan.
It's such an important point. I read a book. It was Atomic Habits. And it was, for those of you who are looking for an overall lifestyle, self-growth, I guess you could call it, type of book. Super great. In listening to it, kind of the same principle that Steve mentioned is, yes, set a plan, but then be consistent. If your goal is to save for a house, taking $500 out of your next paycheck is great. You can't just do that whenever you feel like it. Rather than doing that, make sure every paycheck you get, I'm taking $100 a month, I'm putting it into a savings account. And then you can actually plan out, okay, well, doing that in 12 months, I'll have $1,200. Yeah. Is that enough? Maybe not. So let me see if there's some other ways I can save.
And if you're able to, throw 200. It's better to see the perspective of the whole verse just saying, let's try.
Absolutely. But the first step is definitely coming up with a plan to figure out what you need to do. And then you can figure out through what the realistic expectations and qualifications are for buying a house, whether it's right for you or not.
Definitely.
It might not be. So, and in this market, it's especially more important when you have high levels of competition. You don't have time to go look at a property on Sunday with Steve and then take all week to think about it.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
I have clients that are doing that now, and they get upset. They're like, why is that house gone? Everyone wanted it.
It's a great house.
And it's tough. It's tough to explain to them that, you got to decide soon. You got to decide quick, because this is the biggest purchase in most people's lives. So it's kind of just a tough perspective for everyone. In a market like this, you need to view it, think about it for a day maybe, and go. Dates are key. If I look at a property and my clients want to go check it out and they're interested, if there's a Monday morning deadline, we shouldn't go look at it Sunday night. We should go look Friday, Saturday, think about it for a little bit, and then we can throw the offer in if interested.
Right. Do your thinking as early as possible so that there's less out of it. Then you can just walk in and say, okay, I love this place. This is exactly what I want.
No one wants to impulse decide on anything like that. But in a market like this, stuff's still going quick.
Definitely still going quick, which is actually a great segue into what I wanted to touch on next, and that's the seller side of the market. We talked a lot about buyers and what they look for and what to expect. But for sellers, obviously the question comes up, is now still a good time to sell? Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it still is partially circumstantial. But what's your take on, is it a good time to sell? Like, what things would you talk to someone about who's considering selling?
All about position. If you need a bigger house, sure. But if you just want to kind of move for the hell of it, maybe it's not the time to sell for you, especially if you plan on buying something. Maybe if you're running to Florida, you're going to rent for a year and try to figure it out, sell, yeah. But if you're just trying to change your route a little bit, maybe move a couple miles down the road, might not be the best time to sell, unless you got cash, right?
Right. That'd be nice. Yeah. Go into the mattress and find a couple $100,000.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be great. But usually it doesn't work out that way.
No, definitely. As that conversation comes up, it sounds like, from what I've heard too, it's the same idea that it's become a little bit more out of necessity. Mm-hmm. Do I need a bigger house? Do I need to move? Is there something that is requiring me to sell? If your hesitation is keeping you from doing what you need to do, I agree with Steve. I think that it still is a very good time.
Well, let's be honest. You can't have people leaving, a house that they have a 3% rate at to go move and get a 7% rate. That's not realistic unless it's needed in their personal life. That's just the way it is.
That's definitely the decisions that Steve can help you make, because you can help them ask themselves questions that they might not think about, might help them make the decision. So it's definitely worth looking at, and it might not be for you, but at least, like I said earlier, you'll have all the information you need to make a good decision. So
definitely.
I think that's super important. But in that same question, I think with today's day and age and everything being online, people think that they can list their house themselves on Zillow and get the same amount. Do you have any just quick hitters as far as why that might not be in your best interest?
Zillow, man. Don't look at Zillow. Anytime I have clients, my house is worth this. I'm like, is it? Let me pull comps and let's see. Never been the same, Yeah, Zillow's awful.
I think in this market too, it's so important to make sure you price your house right, because that initial week's worth of attention is so important. Mm-hmm. If you don't get that buzz right off the bat, it could sit, like you say, not to say it's the same with your Malden property. I'm sure you did.
It definitely is, though.
But you might have...
What's wrong with it? Why isn't it sold? It's definitely got... The best is it's got structural damage, maybe. Someone called me. Definitely structural damage. I'm like, have you seen it? They're like, no. I'm like, how can you say that? If it sits, it doesn't look good. And the thing is, for buyers, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the property.
Right.
And sellers do get stubborn, but they also realize,
Right, if I want to sell, I might have to be more flexible.
Yeah.
That's where a buyer who's looking today has an upper hand, because there's not as many.
Yeah. But that's why working with a good agent, instead of just throwing the offer in, you got to realize what the property's worth. You don't want to throw an offer in and throw an appraisal waiver and then, I own $20,000,
Right.
So that's crucial.
That's a key point too. I'm looking forward to the days where you don't have to pay what someone's asking for the house,
Yeah. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No, I was joking with my dad the other day, and I was like, when's the last time you've gone to the supermarket and been like, you know what, I'll pay you $5 instead of $4 for that bag of chicken?
Yeah.
It's like, why? The fact that real estate was like that for a while, I understand, but I'm looking forward to...
It's cool looking at comps, like when a house sold previously, it's like 06 or whatever, and it's like sold for $13,000 under ask. You're like, man, where is this been? You know,
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and then you're looking at, a $500,000 house that sold for $600,000. It's crazy.
That's all part of the natural correction curve that we were talking about. It's not even necessarily that the homes are worth less. I think what happened during COVID in the past year, and feel free to chime in on your opinion on this, I'd love to hear it. It's a lot like throwing a football down the sideline to a receiver who's running. You're trying to lead him. So in real estate for a while, that's how it was, because the market was moving so fast that your neighbor's house sold for 600, you're listing your house for 620.
Yeah, it wasn't catching up.
And all of a sudden we get to this breaking point with rates, and it's like, well, you just overshot the market because things have changed, which is why you need a realtor who's doing it every day to make sure that they can follow the trends and be on target with their pricing and understand the market, so you get that buzz and you get your house sold.
I totally agree. The market can only catch up so fast. That was the craziest thing ever. Seeing a house sell for 600, you're like, wow, I can't believe it sold for 600. Neighbor list for 630 the next day. Like, where's this going?
And then that becomes a new comp. So the next person who lists is 650.
Yeah. Then the whole neighborhood's gone. It's all sold.
Now it's $1 million neighborhood.
Exactly. It's crazy. But that's exactly what we were seeing. I was seeing that so much in Framingham. It was going like crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Nuts.
And people didn't necessarily care as much because mortgage rates were so low that an extra $10,000 might have been $40 a month.
Exactly.
So it wasn't as impactful. And for them, they'll be in a good spot if they got a nice deal. But yeah, I think we're starting to turn that corner.
Yeah. I'd say a year and a half ago, I used to explain that to my clients. Like, you throw an extra $10,000, it's only going to be so much more a month. And this is you winning the house versus losing it. Obviously it's their decision at the end game, but after putting 20 offers in, it's kind of, you got to guide them in a direction where it's like, this is what will make you win. And now it's,
I think there was that,
different.
there was that fine line for a while of what do I want to pay for the house and what does it take to get it?
Exactly.
But that same person who didn't take your advice and went 10,000 under and didn't get the house, they're going to pay more now for that same house because the mortgage rates are higher. And even throughout a couple months, house values are still appreciating in a lot of areas. Obviously, it's localized and geographics play into that. But
I agree. I definitely agree. It's not as crazy, but definitely I see appreciation.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hyper localized. Obviously, you read some of the articles in the news and you see certain areas, whether it be Austin, Texas, or Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
Which Boise, Idaho, I know. I don't have to do some more homework on that one, but I know it's one of them.
That,
yeah, and then they're seeing a different correction, but it's definitely something that's starting to happen. So
yeah, definitely, totally agree.
Hopefully you'll find some opportunities. And if you're ever looking out for more information on this stuff, Steve, I'm sure would be happy to help answer some questions for you and
anytime
guide you in the right direction. And I'll be happy to answer any lending questions. But definitely, start with someone who's a professional and have someone give their honest opinion. You wouldn't walk outside and go figure out how to fix your deck on your own. You'd hire someone who knows what they're doing to fix your deck.
Definitely.
So
you got to learn. Whether it's you do the home buying courses, go to those, learn. Absolutely. See what it's like. You can hop into the market in the correct.
Worst case, you walk away with more information. Yeah, so exactly. It's not a bad thing.
And some free food.
And sometimes free beers.
Yeah. There you go.
There's some upside. Definitely some upside. Well, Steve, this has been, a great conversation, but one thing I want to touch on before we wrap this up is some strategies that you can implement to make properties more affordable. I know we talked about some state housing programs. We talked about some no money down options, but what investment strategies would you recommend to someone who's looking to get into real estate for the long term and wants to minimize their monthly payment?
I think house hacking is the best way to possibly get into real estate for anyone. So when you buy a multifamily, have one vacant unit, live in it, and have the other units basically cover your mortgage, or most of it. The goal isn't really to profit. If you do, it's awesome. But the goal isn't to profit. It's to basically live free. So I think that's really the best way to get into the real estate market. I work with a pretty decent sized investor, and he came home from the military, bought a multifamily, lived in it for a year, pulled line of equity, and now he has like a $15-20 million real estate portfolio. Wow. Just starting off that one property. So I think that's honestly the best possible way to get started. In an investment standpoint, definitely. Other than that, a lot of people are just driven towards those single families, and I still think it's a good way to just hop in. And if it's a single family, ask a couple of your buddies to live with you, rent out some rooms. I'm not really the guy with throw on Craigslist and say, hey, you want to live with me?
Yeah.
But a couple of your buddies, $600, $800 a room, cut your mortgage in half at least, and it just benefits. And while they're paying you rent, you're building equity.
That's an awesome point of advice because I think with house hacking, it's not only, if your goal is to invest in real estate, house hacking doesn't just reduce your payment or get you to live for free, but it gives you experience.
Definitely.
If you want to own rental properties, the best way to learn is by doing it and being able to be present. So you can manage your tenants every day. You can manage your property. You can figure out how to collect rent payments, deal with all of the nuances that come with owning an investment property while you're there.
You're there. Yeah, you're literally there.
You have to be, right?
So if something happens, they knock on your door. Versus, getting a call at 2 a.m. saying, hey, my toilet's busted or my fridge is broken,
Right.
You're right there. So it's a great learning curve, definitely. I totally agree.
You can take those skills and roll them into other properties because like your investor, the average person can't just go buy a 10, 20 unit building and know how to manage it. Yes, they'll have a management company, but you still have to manage the management company to follow the practices and standards you have in your own business. Yeah. So I think if you can start with that ground level, being in the unit, and also while you're in the unit, you can put some sweat equity into it.
Definitely.
So if you're handy enough, you can go on YouTube, figure out how to put a vanity in, put it in your bathroom, and now you're adding some value to your property, learning how much that's going to cost, how much you can save if you do it for yourself. So that way, going forward on your next property, you already have this understanding. Yeah. And you can look at a bathroom when you walk through a rental property and say, well, I know a vanity costs about $400 and all I need to account for is labor. So you build those small skills to being a real estate investor that you can build on, but it starts with that foundation of house hacking. So I think it's a great recommendation.
I agree. And it's also a good way to find out if you're built to be a landlord. Because a lot of people aren't. You learn the hard way or the good way.
That's a good point. Because, house hacking on paper sounds great. I'm going to rent my other unit. I'm going to collect the rent. But anyone who's been a real estate investor or is in real estate knows it's not as simple as just collecting a rent check.
It's not always pretty.
But starting with that certainly can help reduce your payment. And then you build a network too. I mean, real estate, in a sense, we talked about a team, and it's really a network game. It's about having the resources. So now you can start to build your network. Okay, I have a contractor who I can trust to work on my property if I need it.
Definitely.
I can have a plumber to come in and do something, or an electrician. I have a real estate agent in my corner who I can ask for recommendations. And more importantly, though, as you build that network, you have the chance to oversee them. You can see how they do their work, see how they manage things, see how they quote. So that when you buy your next property as an investment and you don't live there to manage it, you already trust your people and your systems.
I mean, knowledge is power. When you're ready to go, you're ready to go. And after learning all that stuff, just makes the process 10 times easier. Granted, it's not easy, but it makes it easier. Realize how they need to do it.
Definitely. I think anyone who's considering investing should look into house hacking. Feel free to reach out to Steve or I if you have questions, but I think it's definitely something that can help.
Especially honing in at the younger aged people. People that in their mid-20s don't know if they want to, whatever they want to do. Just sets them up perfectly to say, this is what I can do, and I can actually buy a home and cut my mortgage in half, if not more.
And part of it, too, is if your goal is to build a real estate portfolio, house hacking allows you to leverage your cash. So the biggest benefits in terms of mortgages go to those who live in the property as their primary residence. So you can buy a 3-family with 3.5% down. But if you want to buy a 3-family as investment property, you got to put 25% down.
Exactly.
So the theory is that you live in the property like we were talking about, put some sweat equity into it, increase the value, and in a year from then you move out. Now the property pays for itself. Then you go to buy another 3-family property, you live in it, put 3.5% down. Now you own 2 multifamily properties, potentially 6 units for 3.5% down. Versus you're renting and you buy a multifamily investment property for 25% down.
Yeah, you just deplete yourself dry cash-wise.
You can't scale the same way. And not only that, but you get a higher interest rate, you get higher closing costs. Yeah. And you have to understand how to manage a property without being on site. So that's why I think it's so important to start that way if your goal is to build a portfolio.
5 years in a row, do that 5 times. You're going to set yourself up
You'll be in a great spot.
Nice. Yeah,
You'll be in a great spot.
Definitely.
So I think and then because, in the end, a lot of people who have been investing in real estate for a long time have seen the change from the mortgage side. Obviously, everyone talks about 2008. And the lending practices, were in large part a cause of the financial crisis. And some of those products historically you used to be able to buy an investment property with 5% down, with no money down, whatever terms you wanted. But now the game has changed and they're making it more difficult for investors to go out and buy these properties because they're more risky. They're the first property someone sells when they're in distress. So if you know how to work the products to the best advantage for you, not only from the investment perspective, but from the knowledge perspective, you can really, leverage your cash and make your dollar go a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Pulling lines of equity and all that, once you're able to, can really bring you far. Build your whole portfolio very well.
That's a great segue, because another thing to mention in that same respect is equity lines. So similar to buying an investment property is taking out an investment equity line. So when you take out an investment equity line, you're limited to the amount of cash you can take out based on the value. Mm-hmm. Typically, it could be 70% depending on the lender, 75%. Some even go 65, 60% depending on different scenarios. So you might not even be able to take out an equity line on your investment property for many years down the line, versus if it's your primary residence, buy it, multifamily with 3.5% down, you put some equity into it, you're in there for a year, it appreciates. There's equity line products, you can access 100% of your equity while you live in the property. So now you can actually recapture some of the cash you put into it and use that for payment on your next. But the only way to do that is to take that equity line out when you live in the property. Yeah. So you can set yourself up for success that way.
Capitalize. I mean, it's a great option.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but 25% down on a $600,000 home. I mean, no one has that kind of cash laying around, right? Yeah. 130, 140,000 to put into a property. Yeah. I mean, that's, a substantial amount of cash.
It's definitely a decent amount.
That can go, you buy 5 properties this way.
Exactly. Definitely.
Versus putting that 180 into a property. And that's, well, Steve, it was great having you on today.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
I appreciate you coming out. If you want to learn more about Steve, you can find him on his Instagram at Pizzarella Properties. Feel free to reach out to myself if you want his contact information. But my name's Ryan Richards, the mortgage loan officer at Northpoint Mortgage, and thanks for watching.